Hello, my name is Jessica Sprague. I am a mother, a dog owner, a student, a successful business owner, and I'm speaking to you today on behalf of the Association for Mental Health to bring awareness to a very real problem plaguing millions of people every day. But first, I want to tell you about how I became an advocate for the Association of Mental Health. About a month ago, I was attending an event with my daughter called Project Echo. My daughter is a high school sophomore who attends an entrepreneurial charter school in California, where we live. We were at this regional event that included 26 schools and over 500 kids that were there to present their business plans and products in hopes of winning a cash prize to either launch their business or go on a shopping spree with the cash they won. My daughter was among these brilliant young entrepreneurs, and I knew that their group was presenting and they had a brilliant idea, an amazing business plan, and a killer presentation planned. What I wasn't prepared for was a very real story they loved their presentation with, and I'm going to share it with you today. A young man named Carter died on November 23, 2015. He suffered from undiagnosed depression and insomnia. Unknowingly, his teachers piled work on top of his unstable mentality. His friends didn't understand what he was feeling. He didn't understand what he was feeling. That night at 10:13 p.m., he ingested 700 milligrams of Benadryl. When his mother found him on the bathroom floor early the next morning, it was too late. Now, this story, although tragic, is like many we have heard before, of a young adolescent who is emotional, who gets bullied or alienated, and impulsively acts out. However, standing there in the auditorium, listening to my beautiful, smart daughter and her friends, I realized this wasn't just someone's story. This was the story about someone I knew. Earlier this year, my son's best friend attempted to kill herself by swallowing a bottle of pills. A year earlier, a friend whose son was 1 year younger than my daughter shot himself and he died. And as a family, we struggle to help my daughter's half-brother, who is 28 years old, addicted to drugs, homeless, and suffers from mental health issues. In that moment, I realized I was not alone. I was one of many, and as I stood there and I listened to the presentation, besides being amazed at my brilliant child and her friends, I also realized that we needed to do more for those suffering with mental illness. We need to offer access and education in a way that's meaningful to the youth of today and adults of tomorrow. I say this because, like Whitney Houston said, the children are our future. One of the things the girls said that stood out to me during the presentation was, if only. If only he had knowledge of mental illness. If only he had access to treatment, this could have been prevented. If only. If only someone, somewhere, could have been there in that moment when Carter, my son's friend, and my friend's son decided to take their own lives, it could have been prevented. The Association for Mental Health is opening doors to treatment and care. AMH is an organization dedicated to assisting adolescents and adults with mental illness by recommending treatment, providing access to help and support those with mental illness. They work directly through schools to provide treatment to students via counseling, mental illness education programs, and assemblies. And additionally, students are screened biannually using pre-diagnostic testing, and based on test results, recovery tools are offered on a modern platform, such as the organization's app, social media, and video conferencing. By taking a modern approach to mental health care, not only has AMH been able to expand access to provide more care to those in need, but the organization has also addressed the issues related to prevention through its screening and tracking processes. These processes recognize if users have a mental illness or are developing one. The programs also recognize if there are problems related specifically to school groups, organizations, or businesses in the community that need to be addressed. AMH can also provide treatment as well through one of 3 levels of care: mild, intermediate, and intense treatment. The assessment completed by the user identifies the best course of treatment and is recommended to the user. The programs also collect data on the mental health of users for statistical analysis and community development. The founders of AMH are a brilliant bunch of young women who are innovative and full of potential, who will undoubtedly change the world someday. Yet as I stood and listened to their presentation, I couldn't help but wonder why 6 young ladies in high school were able to come up with a resolution so sound and effective in a matter of a few short months, and yet our Congress and lawmakers who have been bickering back and forth for decades haven't come up with anything even remotely close to resolving the healthcare crisis we face today. According to the National Alliance on Mental Health, 1 in 5 adults in the United States experiences mental illness. That's 18.5% of the U.S. population. 1/2 of all chronic mental illness begins at age 14, and 3/4 begin by age 24. The consequences of mental health are addiction for those trying to self-medicate, homelessness, and jail. Approximately 10.2 million people who suffer from mental illness are also suffering from addiction. About 26% of those of the homeless population live with serious mental illness, and 24% of prisoners have recently experienced mental illness. Mental illness affects our families, our friends, our coworkers, communities, countries, and the world. In the U.S. alone, mental illness costs Americans $193.2 billion each year. And currently, depression is the #1 leading cause of disability and disease worldwide. So it's no surprise that 90% of those who die from suicide have an underlying mental illness. We also know that 60% of adults and 50% of kids ages 8 through 15 are suffering from mental illness and did not receive treatment last year. These numbers tell us we are experiencing a mental health pandemic, but unlike the flu or the measles or HIV, mental health is not a virus and cannot be cured with a vaccination. And yet, approximately over 34,000 people in the U.S. alone commit suicide each year, and for every suicide death, 25% of the people have made an attempt. According to the World Health Organization, in the future, at the rate we are going, depression will surpass cancer, stroke, accidents, and war as the leading cause of disability and death. We need to address this issue because suicide is preventable, because depression can be treated, and because mental health is just as important as physical health. Today, I ask you to join me to create awareness and create policy that changes the face of mental health. We need to bring awareness, education, and acceptance to support those suffering from mental illness. In the policy I'm presenting today, I propose that we establish pre-screening and offer services that connect our youth to proper mental health providers on platforms that engage and support them. Our schools, medical providers, and social workers should be trained to screen and identify children at risk so they can be provided with free mental health services at local schools, medical facilities, and clinics within their communities. If we can prevent and treat the 18.5% of the population currently affected by mental illness, we can prevent our youth from ending up in prison, reduce substance abuse, reduce suicide, and increase the number of productive members of society. Throughout our history, we have addressed and successfully countered serious diseases such as AIDS, HIV, cancer, and numerous childhood diseases through research, study, awareness programs, and preventive action. Mental health awareness and prevention is no different. Like HIV and AIDS, there are proven treatment plans and medication that can help people to live normal lives. Like cancer, we can help reduce and put mental health issues into remission. And with proper screening, we can prevent our young people from taking their own lives and the lives of others. Today, I address you as a woman, a mother, and a friend, asking you, representatives for the people, to take a stand against the silence and loneliness of depression and mental health disorders. I ask that your vote speak for the children and adults who are afraid to seek help or simply don't have access to mental health care. I ask that you bring awareness to people of the United States by standing up for the 18.5% of the population that is currently suffering. And I guarantee their friends, relatives, co-workers, and communities will stand with you to fight this unrecognized pandemic. Thank you.